I'm going to be presenting Get Accepted to Columbia Business School today. So thank you all very much for coming as people are settling in. Again, we've had a wonderful response to today's webinar. I'd like to just tell you a little bit about me as people are coming in and getting settled. I've been an MBA admissions consultant since 1994. My name is Linda Abraham again. I've been quoted in Poets and Quants, the Wall Street Journal, U.S. News, Bloomberg Business Week, and others regarding MBA admissions. I'm also the co-founder and was the first president of the Association of International Graduate Admissions Consultants. And I'm looking forward, most importantly, to sharing my 26 years of admissions experience with you. Now, I'd like to have to start out today, I really want you to walk out of here feeling like you've gotten value and started or advanced your Columbia application. And I'd like to start with a quick Post-it note party to start the webinar, okay? So hopefully you have some Post-it notes handy. If you don't, paper will do. And yes, even a computer file will do, or your phone or whatever you want to use. But what I'd like you to do is on each Post-it note or index card or piece of paper, write down one achievement or experience that you would like Columbia Business School to know about you. It can be professional, it can be non-professional. So that's on each card, write down one achievement or experience. And also on that card, write down the character traits that this experience reveals about you. It could be leadership, initiative, compassion, communication skills, whatever. Okay. Again, one Post-it note should have experiences that you would like Columbia to know about you and the character traits that those experiences, the qualities, attributes that those experiences reveal. One experience or achievement per note, index card, or square on a piece of paper, if that's how you're doing it. That's how we're going to start this webinar. And that's going to be the foundation of your application. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Keep writing. As people come in, again, we're doing a little exercise to start this webinar. And that is take a Post-it note, and on each Post-it note, write an experience that you want Columbia Business School to know about and the attributes that that experience reveals. Okay, I'm going to give another 30 seconds or so for you guys to write, you folks to write. And then we'll move on. Before we dive into the material, I wanted to mention a few to-dos that will help you maximize your time here, and one that will help us improve these webinars. Number one, if you've not yet downloaded your webinar worksheet, take a second to do so and print it out. I think Carly is going to post the link in the chat window. So there it is. I strongly recommend that you print it out. That's my personal preference. And you can use it to take notes, follow along, make notes for yourself for the future, and it's there for your benefit. I believe it will help you get the most out of today's presentation. Now we're going to use the question window for your questions and the chat window for you to answer my questions. If you have questions at any point in time during the presentation, please feel free to post them in the question window. Number 3, you can win. We're going to have a contest towards the end of the webinar based solely on content presented during the webinar. So stay tuned. The prize is a free consultation with me. And I'd like to share with you feedback from a winner of just such a contest last spring. He wrote me, I just wanted to let you know that I will be attending Michigan Ross this fall. Honestly, you were hugely influential in my decision to attend business school this fall, meaning now, he's already started. I was considering applying this upcoming fall, i.e. as your competition. But listening to your webinars and then speaking with you directly, I took your advice about using this as an opportunity to get into a great school and went for it. And now I am thrilled, in capital letters, with where I'm heading. I very much appreciate your guidance and support, and thank you for taking the time to speak with me. So hopefully you can be in a similar position in a few weeks, having won the contest, or at least on your way to that. It took him a little bit more time than a few weeks. Now, when you leave, you're going to receive a brief survey. Please fill it out. We value your feedback. As a matter of fact, we are constantly improving these webinars based on participant feedback. So go ahead. Again, please fill it out. And the last housekeeping item, and this is the participant's favorite, Accepted has a special for today's webinar registrants. And I'm going to tell you what it is right now, so you won't be anxiously waiting to find out. I really want you to focus on the material to be presented. You can save different amounts, but up to $1,000, depending upon how much you spend on any services that we provide, your total purchase, obviously. And this special ends November 22nd. So it's nowhere on the site right now. It will be on the site starting November 16th. You folks have several extra days to take advantage of it, to talk to a consultant before signing up, to get comfortable with our services. So there you go. Okay. And I see that Carly's posting a poll already, which is great. Where are you at in the application process? And the options are applying this application cycle and planning to apply next application cycle. And now we're doing another poll. Where are you at? Yeah. Okay, here we go. Here's the poll. And we'll go. I think we have a great audience today. You're voting in large numbers. That's fantastic. We're at 72% having voted. Can we get it up to 80? 5, 4, 3. Come on, somebody vote. 2, 1. Okay, we can close the poll and share the results. So 68% of you are applying this application cycle, and 32% are planning to apply next year or later. Okay, so most of you are this year. That's actually been pretty much the trend in the last several webinars that we've done. But welcome for those of you planning ahead. Congratulations. Okay, and then the next poll is, which CBS program are you most interested in? Traditional September entry, the J term, deferred admit, or executive MBA? Again, the options are traditional September entry, J term, deferred admissions, or executive MBA. And we have 80% voting, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We can close the poll with 82% having voted. Again, we have a great audience today. 92% of you are applying to the traditional September entry. 44% are interested in J term, 4% are interested in deferred admission, and nobody's here for the MBA degree. Okay. All right. I expected a little bit more on the deferred admit, but that's great. So you're mostly applying for traditional September entry. Good to know. And I'd like you to type CBS in the chat window if you agree with the following statement. I am here because business school, and specifically Columbia Business School, will launch me on the way to the career of my dreams. Again. Type CBS if you agree with that statement. Great. Well, most of you are here for the right reasons. That's wonderful. Now, and you have lots of reasons to be here, frankly, because Columbia prides itself on being at the very center of business. That's, of course, Columbia's tagline. It's located a short subway ride from Midtown Manhattan, Fifth Avenue, Madison Avenue, and Wall Street. New York City is a leading business center, if not the leading business center internationally for finance, and definitely is a business center for entrepreneurship, fashion and luxury goods, media and entertainment, advertising, and healthcare. With recruiting strengths in consulting and financing, special programs in value investing and retail, ties to Madison Avenue and the entrepreneurial beehive that is New York City and Columbia University, it's not surprising that Columbia Business School is hard to get into. You see on the screen that you need competitive statistics to get in, right? Its average GMAT last year was 726, which is down a little bit from 718-19, but up from 2017, 724. So it's been hovering in that range, high 700s basically, high 720s rather. Other stats are unchanged from last year, despite the crazy admission cycle that Columbia and the rest of the business school world experienced. Now, I have visited Columbia several times, and I've also interviewed Columbia Business School's admissions team representatives for Accepted's podcast, and I've hosted Ask Me Anythings for Columbia also. The takeaways from these interactions is that they want to admit people who will be genuinely excited about being in New York City and being part of the energized city that never sleeps. People who not only can put up with New York, but who will thrive and take advantage of the opportunities that New York offers. People who want to build on the Columbia Business School heritage and be a proud part of the Columbia Business School community, and people who want to be taught by cutting edge researchers while at the same time engaging with leading practitioners. People, in a nutshell, who will know how to take advantage of what Columbia Business School offers. So, the plan for today is to go through Accepted's 4-part framework and apply that framework to Columbia's 2020-2021 application. You can use the strategy framework on other top programs also. But the tactics and the focus today is going to be the application to Columbia's full-time MBA program, which is what most of you are interested in, all of you actually. I'm also going to, in the course of the webinar, issue a few warnings and caveats based on the rabbit holes that I've seen applicants go down, and the first one's coming right now. You're not going to get in by waving a magic wand. A dab of makeup won't do it, not even spin that some applicants like to focus on. You need to submit a meaty, substantive application. And in my mind, substance means competitive qualifications and an effective presentation of those qualifications. In other words, you need to demonstrate fit. Your overriding aim is to show that you belong at Columbia. Now, we're going to dive into the nitty-gritty, but I'd like you first to tell me in the chat window, how do you intend to show you belong at Columbia Business School's MBA program? In the chat window, please. Being more impactful. Okay, Anthony, that's part of it for sure. Anybody else? Highlighting professional achievements, academic ability, leadership potential, and community involvement. Good. Have an impact in my society in the healthcare, I assume, field. Good. I have networked with students and faculty. That's part of it for sure. Leadership skills, community involvement. Good. Part of it. Finance competency, such as CFA, community involvement. Both elements are part of it. Absolutely. Diverse thinking, academic excellent. Good. Also that I'm fun. That's also good to know. Yes. Okay. You've all hit, every single one who responded to my question, hit on part of what you need to do to get into Columbia Business School. What I'm going to try and do is show you a 4-part framework that's more comprehensive. It's not just about academic excellence, and it's not just about community involvement. It's about all of it and a little bit more. So let's move on. Now, Columbia Business School describes very clearly what it's looking for. Columbia Business School looks for intellectually driven people from diverse educational, economic, social, cultural, and geographic backgrounds. Our students share a record of achievement, strong leadership, and the ability to work in teams. Okay, so they're looking for diversity quite clearly. They're looking for intellectual drive, a record of achievement. Think about the Post-it note party at the beginning of this webinar, strong leadership, and teamwork. Okay. Let's start with the intellectual drive, which in Accepted's framework is demonstrate you can do the work and excel. So yes, you need to show intellectual drive, curiosity, ability to succeed in a demanding curriculum. That's the first requirement per CBS. The easiest way, most common way, but not exclusively, the only way to show that intellectual drive, that ability to do the work, is through your undergraduate transcript and test scores. And ideally, you want to be at or above average for Accepted students in both grades and test scores. If you're not above average in your grades for Columbia, how can you convince Columbia to accept you with below average grades? Well, first of all, realize that people do it all the time. The nature of an average is that a lot of people are admitted below average, roughly half, not exactly, but roughly. So it can be done. But the farther away you are below average, and if both your grades and test scores are below average, the less likely it is that you can effectively demonstrate you can do the work. If you need to mitigate, let's again focus on the GPA for the moment. We'll get to the test score in a minute. Listen to accepted.com's podcast, 5 A's for your low GPA, because I lay out there 5 steps that you should do if you're dealing with a below average GPA. Okay, which would, in this case, if you have a 3.5, you don't have a low GPA. If you have a 3.2, yeah, it's or below, then you're dealing with what for Columbia is a low GPA. Now, a high test score can mitigate, no question. For top 10 MBA programs, including Columbia, you ideally want to be at the 80th percentile in both quant and verbal, whether your grades are good or below average. However, again, averages are what they are because people get in with below average scores. The best way to mitigate the impact of a low test score is to retake. That's the simple truth, the uncomfortable, unhappy truth, but that is it. You may want to consider the GRE instead of the GMAT. That's another way to go, but somehow that you got to submit a competitive score. If not, you're dealing with a significant hurdle. If you're not sure whether you should retake or not, check out these 2 resources. The first is a blog post with a short video, as you can tell from the URL. The second is a full webinar giving guidelines on who should retake the GRE or the GMAT and who should not. For more on how to deal with low academic stats or stats that may not show that you can do the work, here, go to how to get accepted to the top business schools with low stats. And we will be sending out these URLs after the webinar if you don't have time to write them down now. However, for step 1, the bottom line is that somehow, some way, you need to show that intellectual drive that Columbia is looking for. You must demonstrate that you can do the work effectively and not struggle with either basic math or communications. They want people who can calculate and communicate. So that's step 1, or part 1 of the framework. Part 2, have a clear reason, realistic idea why you want an MBA from Columbia and how it will help you realize your dreams for getting an MBA. Okay, now I got a question for you. And again, I'd like you to respond in the chat window. Why is this important to Columbia Business School or to any MBA program that asks about your post-MBA goals? In the question window, please. Sorry, in the chat window, please. I made a mistake. Why do they care about your post-MBA goals? Okay, good, Anthony. They want to see how is the school a good fit to your goals. Admit those who want to make the most of the resources offered. Excellent, Anushka. Fit and personal drive. Okay, that's good. Good. Benoit. And if I mispronounce somebody's name, please forgive me. To ensure that they can help you reach those goals. Bingo, Jordan. That was the answer I was looking for. Because they don't want disappointed alumni. Exactly, Kevin. Yes. Yes. Okay. They want to make sure they can help you reach those goals. They want happy customers. They want to know they can help you succeed. And in order to know if they can help you succeed, they need to know what success is for you. So you have to know also what it is, or they can't assess it. It's one really important element in fit. Now, Columbia is really clear that this is important to them. Okay, they ask about it repeatedly in their application. First place they ask is in their short answer question, right? 50 characters max. And then there's an essay about goals. There's also a statistical question. We're going to discuss the essay later, but let's discuss the short answer question now. What is your immediate post-MBA professional goal? And frankly, it's a classic MBA goals question, and a classic response is your post-MBA goal should be described in terms of the function you want to perform and the industry in which you want to do it. Now, Columbia even provides some helpful examples, as you saw there, that fit this model, but just keep in mind that formula. Goal equals function plus industry. And Columbia asks again for this information in their future employment section. But there, I assume it's much more for statistical purposes. But clearly, they want to know, and they want to know that you know what your goal is. And the essay question, which again, we're going to get to a little later, is through your resume and recommendation, we have a clear sense of your path to date. What are your career goals over the next 3 to 5 years? And what in your imagination would be your long-term dream job? That's 500 words. So again, clearly the goals are important to them. And they need to know that you define how you define success so that they can know they can help you achieve it. Admissions needs to be able to connect the dots between where you've been and what you want to do via Columbia's program, career strengths, and extracurricular opportunities. Now, I want to share a little story with you. Esmeralda Cardinal at this point is a senior consultant, but when she first started working for Accepted, I believe it was her first client, she was working with him on a rejection review. And she told him that she would have rejected him also after reviewing his application. And he said, why? He had good stats. Because his goals made no sense, she told him. She would have rejected him also. The fellow had been advised by friends to articulate a goal that was not at all related to what he had done in the past or even what he really wanted to do. But these well-intentioned friends had told him that this goal was the end goal this year. Needless to say, we advised him to articulate an authentic goal that connected his past to his target schools and his future goals, and he was accepted to an M7 program. Don't make the same mistake. Think deeply about what you really want to do, why you want to do it, and what has prepared you to do it, and how Columbia's education, when combined with what you've done in the past and your education in the past, your work experience, non-professional experience in the past, will help you achieve your future goals. That's part 2 of the framework. Part 3, show that you share Columbia's values and have the character it seeks. Now, I mentioned earlier, and I'll mention again, Columbia's mantra is that it's at the very center of business. And that is there because that's what Columbia feels is distinctive about its program, its location, the advantages of being in New York City and part of Columbia University. So you as an applicant have to think about what that means to you, okay? If you listen to the interview with Columbia Business School admissions team or the recent Ask Me Anything, or actually the Ask Me Anything with Michael Robinson, or the podcast interview I did recently with a Columbia Business School MBA student, I think you'll get a better sense of this. But in one word, it means access. If you're at the center of something, you can access any point on that circle. So access in Columbia's terms, especially when you're not dealing with COVID, and hopefully by the time you folks start your MBA, the COVID, we'll have a vaccine, treatments will be better. We won't be dealing with the restrictions that we're dealing with now. Access means access to speakers and conferences in person, master's classes, executives in residence. It means opportunities for consulting projects and networking. And as an applicant, again, I would ask you, how have you taken advantage of these kinds of activities in the past? And do you have the experience to contribute to these kinds of activities in the future? It also means access to the cultural richness that is New York City. Is that important to you? Somebody, I think, said they wanted to be, associated with the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I wasn't sure if I got the correct acronym there, but at the beginning of the webinar. You have enormous access in New York City. It's also enormously multicultural. When have you thrived in a multicultural environment? And then there's a challenge in New York City. It's distraction. Are you able to balance lots of stimulation and opportunities while prioritizing what's important to you? So that's what access means for MBA students at Columbia Business School. And then another value of Columbia's, which you'll see prominently on their site, is putting theory into practice. Columbia Business School faculty has Nobel Prize winners, and it also has leading business CEOs who are accessible for presentations, conferences, and meetings with students. Again, you have this concept of a point of convergence for thought and practice leaders. And there's a curriculum that allows you to put theory into practice. Anybody want to tell me how it does that? How does Columbia Business School's curriculum encourage you to put theory into practice? All right, I'm getting, here we go. Executive in residence. Well, I'm talking about you, experiential learning. Very good, Kevin. Very good. More specifically, you have consulting projects where you're going to be applying what you're learning in class to social enterprise projects, global projects. There are the master's classes. And Columbia is one of the distinctive features of Columbia's program are its in-semester internships. Okay, case studies, experiential learning by dealing with real life cases. All right, you have looked at it. But I would even get more specific. Look at the specific programs and opportunities that Columbia offers. I know its cases are a little bit different, and that's good that you're mentioning them. Extracurricular activities also will allow you to put theory into practice at Columbia. Columbia has the 5x5x5 Student Value Investment Fund, which is a student-run value investing fund, the Columbia Startup Lab, where students can actually work on their own startup ideas, and of course, the various clubs. So at this point, I think on your worksheet, there's a place for you to write down for yourself examples of when you have put theory into practice, turned a class concept or idea and applied it to a problem or situation, or perhaps you can even write it on your Post-it notes, right? The Post-it notes or index cards or whatever it was that you used at the beginning of the webinar. And then Columbia is also very proud of its focus on entrepreneurial mindset. And that's not just about how many students start a new business, although Columbia Business School does have access to the Lang Entrepreneurial Center, Columbia Startup Lab, and the growing entrepreneurial ecosystem of New York City. It's about equipping students to assess opportunities and based on that assessment, initiate a response to that opportunity, regardless of the size of the organization they're involved in. And it's also an ability, most entrepreneurs have a very good ability to rebound from failure or mistakes. So think about, when did you initiate and innovate? And again, initiative and innovation would be or could be the qualities revealed by some of those experiences on your Post-it notes. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. It just means you came in a little bit later. And then the last thing I think that's really important about global, and I think it's very much reflected in the audience here today, is that Columbia, the last thing I want to bring out in terms of Columbia is that it's global. And again, reflected in the audience that's here today. 44% of the students that entered in 2020 are international citizens. And Michael Robinson said that 90% showed up in New York City for the start of class. So again, despite visa problems, delays, the quarantine, etc., they made it to New York City. The cost of living, it's a very international program. And Columbia offers, when you're not dealing with COVID restrictions, global immersions, consulting projects, and social enterprise projects. And they're probably doing some of those projects remotely now. So how will you take advantage of the global opportunities if they are important to the achievement of your goals? Where can you demonstrate multicultural fluency? Do you have international work experience, extensive personal travel, a multicultural background or experience? And actually, the final element I want to highlight in terms of Columbia's values, and this came through loud and clear in all my interactions with Amanda Carlson, is the importance and pride in Columbia's community. This is another aspect of Columbia Business School's culture, and we're going to discuss it a little bit more in a couple of minutes. But Columbia is very proud of its community and wants people who will sustain and contribute to it. So when and how have you contributed to your community? Now for one of my warnings. Now that I've gone through these values, I want you to realize that there's a major difference between mouthing back these phrases or platitudes, spitting back Columbia's website, and actually showing that you share the values. The former is frankly just a cheap form of trickery. There's no authenticity to it. So spamming them with phrases from their website or mantra-like repetition of at the center of XYZ really won't do it. But examples in your essays, bullet points in your resume, your letters of recommendation or the points made by your recommenders, your responses to interview questions should in total show that you both have what Columbia is looking for and can benefit from what Columbia offers and can enrich your class with your distinctive experience, background, and perspective. To me, Columbia wants to see how you will thrive on its campus and in its city, and that you have the grit and discipline to make the most of it all while flourishing in the craziness that is Manhattan. And your recommenders and your responses to interview questions should reinforce these qualities demonstrated and revealed through your application. So right now, on your worksheet or a piece of paper or more post-it notes, write down 3 to 5 ways in which you would demonstrate you share Columbia Business School's values, or perhaps take the post-it notes that you've already written out and just mark down which values of Columbia's um, those experiences reveal. Again, ability to take advantage of New York City as being at the center of it, as a point of convergence and access, multiculturalism, entrepreneurial mindset, and community contributor. If you focus on the ways that you have revealed and demonstrated those qualities, you don't have to spit back phrases at all. And another warning, I'm going to let you write for a minute. Another warning, if you focus on brand or ranking, you're going to obscure this fit aspect of admissions, meaning Columbia's brand, and that will contribute to you focusing on the wrong things. The result will be, instead of what you want Columbian to know, you're going to be telling them what they already do know. The result will be that you blend in. You want to stand out in a positive way. You want to show that you have distinctive experience and perspective to contribute. Columbia has lots of applicants, and it can be choosy. At 2020 application volume, it rejected roughly 5 out of every 6 applicants. It had a 16.2% acceptance rate. And this leads to my last point, the last part of the framework. Okay. Demonstrate that you'll be able to contribute to your class and the greater Columbia community, and ultimately make the school proud that they have you, that they admitted you, that you're part of their community. Columbia wants students who are prepared to have impact, and many of you noted that in the first exercise we did. They want you to reveal a habit of impact and teamwork through your essays, resume, activity history, and the rest of the application. So, do you have a history of successful collaboration? Have you contributed in the past? Again, if some of those post-it notes show teamwork, write it down. Where have you made a difference? Where have you contributed? And I'd like you to share that in the chat window now. Okay, this is, and I will comment and give feedback. Okay, on your examples. Here are a couple that I just made up. Raised $50,000 for a fraternity charity drive. Raised money in whatever way for a new community center, or led an implementation that increased sales or cut costs or shortened time to market by 10%. Now, again, in the chat window, if you could share some times when you made a difference. I just, again, gave some examples. When have you made a difference and how? I made a difference in my community by raising money for my educational not-for-profit, as well as providing financial literacy to my parents at my job. Excellent, Anthony. That would be improved if you discussed how much money you raised and how many people were helped by your efforts. Anushka wrote, mentored women and minorities at work on how to break the glass ceiling and still doing it. Very good. How many women and minorities have you mentored? Can you give an example of success where they were promoted? Neha, increase the sales contribution of the category that I manage in a multicultural category retail from 10% to over 50% in 4 years. Fantastic. Very good. Raise money during COVID-19 for people with food crises. Excellent. Here again, I would say, how much did you raise? How many people were helped? Over what period of time? Were you leading an initiative in that case? And in that case, how many people were assisting you, if there were others? Here from Kevin, led project to restructure an investment portfolio that saved millions in capital costs and reduced major headline risks. Fantastic. Very good. Led market analysis and sales strategies that allow my family business to initiate exports currently worth 10% of revenue. Excellent. Very good. Well done. helped rebuild destroyed communities. Okay, Rania, what was your role? How many communities were you involved with, or how many homes did you rebuild? How did you do that? Did you raise money? Did you go out and hammer the nails in? Were you part of a team? Did you lead a team? More detail there would be very helpful. Reduce the time of the company's budget results by recreating the process. This is from Jesus. How much was it reduced? Okay, was it reduced by X days, X weeks? What percentage? Again, what I'm trying to show you here is how specifics will make what your achievements much more credible and concrete and impressive. Okay. Board member, nonprofit, contributed to 90K, contributed over 3 years in donor and corporate sponsorship. I'd like more detail on that, Jessica. Obviously, you don't have a lot of room here. All right, let me go on. But you've given excellent examples. Thank you. We've kind of touched on work experience, but I want to go into that a little bit more specifically at the moment. Do you have the work experience quantitatively and qualitatively that will allow you to have an impact in class and on team projects? Now, most of you, the examples you gave that were business oriented were the kind that were qualitatively competitive. But let's discuss this again. Quantitatively competitive work experience, the average at CBS is 5 years, but the middle 80% is 3 to 8 years. And there's probably more fudge room on the upper end than the lower end. So there are millions of, if not billions of people, well, not billions, but definitely millions and millions of people who fit that criteria. So that's not what's really going to differentiate you. Okay. What's really going to differentiate you, especially once you're in that range, is qualitatively competitive work experience. Work experience that shows you the leadership, impact, grit, initiative, and entrepreneurial tendencies, global tendencies that Columbia value, or at least some of those qualities, and above average progression on the job. Okay, so it's two things. You could be working for a blue chip company, but if you're basically checking the boxes and just progressing as most people progress, that's nice, that's good, but that's not above average. It's not excellent, it's not exceptional. And I think this is going to be a tough application cycle, and I think they're going to be able to be choosy and go for those who particularly have above average progression on the job. Now, I'd like to, going back to the concept of specifics, I'd like to do a little thought experiment. And we're going to show a poll now. Right, there we go. How many of you work in finance, and this is since college, have worked in finance or currently work in finance and consulting? How many of you have traveled outside your home country for work or pleasure? How many of you have volunteered in college and or since, or none of the above? Okay, we're getting great participation. Let's see if we can't get a little bit higher. Again, the options are, and you can choose more than one. You have worked since college in finance or consulting, traveled outside your home country for work or pleasure, have volunteered in college and or since, or none of the above. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And close the poll and share the results with 71% having participated. 52% of you have worked in finance or consulting. 74% of you have traveled outside your home country for work or pleasure. And 78% of you have volunteered in college and or since. And then 4% say that none of the above apply. Okay, so we can stop sharing those results, and let's do the next poll. Okay. How many of you have worked in strategy consulting for Bain and Company, worked in financial analysis for a big pharmaceutical company on drug development and pricing, volunteered at a summer camp for teens with autism, or none of the above? Okay, I'm going to give the options one more time. You worked in strategy consulting for Bain and Company, worked in financial analysis for a big pharmaceutical company on drug development and pricing, volunteered at a summer camp for teens with autism, and none of the above. All right, with 78% having voted, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you can, all right, and share the results. And Nobody here has worked for Bain and Company in strategy consulting. Nobody has worked for that pharmaceutical company on pricing. 4% of you have volunteered at a summer camp for teens with autism, and somehow it came out to 100% did none of the above. That's obviously an error. So I'm going to guess it's probably 95% were none of the above. All right. So what is the difference between the two sets of questions in the chat window, please? In the chat window. Generic versus specific. Exactly, Kevin. Specificity. Specific versus general. Second ones are general. What happens when we talk in specific terms as opposed to general terms? Second one is detailed. You set yourself apart. Exactly. Kevin, you're on it today. Whoa. You stand out, right, Louise? Show uniqueness. Exactly, Dina. Exactly. You individuate. We need to give more detail to show how we are different and unique. Exactly. Actually, it's kind of the opposite of profiling. You profile, you stereotype, you generalize. When you're specific, you individuate. You have to set yourself apart very naturally. So when you describe what you do, are you going to say that you're an engineer or a transportation engineer? Are you a consultant or a healthcare consultant or a Bain healthcare consultant or McKinsey or whatever? Did you volunteer or did you found a new organization to address a specific need in your community, however you define your community? Now, Anthony chatted me that he worked for a summer camp that does much more than the example I gave. That's great. So he has a specific experience that did not fit into what I mentioned. That's fantastic. But it's the specifics that are going to differentiate you. I suspect that if I had volunteered at a summer camp for teens, a whole bunch more of you would have been able to check that box. Or, again, we did the thought experiment. I think the results are clear to all of you. Now, let's review the 4 strategic steps you need to think about before and while putting your application together. Whoops, there we go. Show that you can do the work in class and excel. Have a clear, realistic idea why you want an MBA from Columbia and how you intend to use it. Show shared values and that you meet its criteria, and demonstrate that you'll be able to contribute to Columbia's community and ultimately make the school proud. Now let's look at specific elements of the Columbia application. I've already touched briefly on the grades and transcripts, as well as short answer questions. Let's look at some other elements. Start with a job and activity history. Now, you must make the most of the 1 to 2 page resume that you're going to submit so that you show impact and contribution. For Columbia, in its job history, it's pretty much the facts and nothing but the facts. There's little room to elaborate on motivations, lessons learned, or significant experiences. But you are asked to describe your duties and responsibilities in one box rather. And you're asked to provide up to 3 roles, full-time employment only. So before I get to duties and responsibilities, I just want to mention they also ask for salaries and bonuses and give them some fairly detailed instructions on reporting those. So just make sure that you pay attention to those instructions. I'm not going to go through them here. In terms of this box, this duties and responsibilities box, make sure that you focus on achievements and not mere descriptions of your responsibilities, even though the box says duties and responsibilities. Let your achievements reveal your duties and responsibilities. How could you do that? Let me see if I can come up with an example. Was the youngest team lead in the company to do X, Y, and Z. Your duty was to do X, Y, and Z, but you were the youngest one. That's above average progression on the job. Or that would be one example. Or as sales manager, grew my region's sales to 20% more than it ever was, or the best performing region on the whole company. Those kinds of things. So yes, you were the sales manager. That was your duty. That was your responsibility. But what you did with that duty and responsibility is what you want to highlight. Similarly, in the activity history window, The instructions are list up to 3 collegiate extracurricular activities and up to 3 post-collegiate extracurricular activities in order of importance. Again, quantify your impact whenever possible. Remember that exercise we did a few minutes ago. Obviously, be succinct. You don't have a lot of room. Now, let's get to the essays. The 3 essays, Columbia's 3 essays, should complement the other elements of the application and each other as they answer the questions posed and reveal something distinctive and interesting about you. So going to those Post-it notes and those things that you've jotted down, what you're going to want to do is take the activities that answer the question and are most impressive, and I would say focus on them in the essays to the extent possible, because in some respects, Columbia doesn't give you a lot of place to talk about things that have happened in the past. So they're going to have to come through much more in the job history and activity history and your CV, etc. And maybe you can ask your recommenders to talk about some things. Now, these are great places to reveal the qualities that Columbia values and show fit. Essay 1. What are your career goals over the next 3 to 5 years, and what, in your imagination, would be your long-term dream job? Now, you already outlined in your short answer your short-term MBA goal. Your job history and resume give them a good sense of your professional past, as they say. And I would suggest to you that when you sit down to write this question, you need to get ready, get set, and think. What are you trying to achieve with this degree? How do you hope to achieve it? How would you ideally want your career to evolve? And I have to ask you, while you're thinking of that, why do you think the first sentence, which isn't on your slide, through your resumes and recommendations, we have a clear sense of your professional path to date? Why do you think that sentence is there? To avoid repetition. Exactly, Neha. 100%. And Michael Robinson, Associate Dean of MBA Admissions at Columbia Business School, in an Admission Straight Talk podcast said, and I'm quoting, "We hope to avoid applicants simply restating their professional past. Don't do that in this essay." And he's made similar statements every time I've heard him discuss the essays. This is a future-focused question. How would you like your career to develop beyond that post-MBA job? And yes, they do want to know your dreams, so feel free to dream. You could write this essay chronologically, thematically, or start with the dream job as you see it, and then describe how you see your career developing after your first post-MBA job so that it culminates with that job. Now, you have 500 words. It's the longest of Columbia's essays, but it still isn't long. So throw out anything that doesn't relate to these points. If it's still too long, focus on what's most important. And what this can't be and shouldn't be is a copy and paste of a response to another school's goals question. You might be able to use phrases or sentences, but not a copy and paste. All right, essay 2. Why do you feel Columbia Business School is a good fit for you? Okay, another way of asking, why do you want to go to Columbia Business School for your MBA? How are you going to take advantage of Columbia Business School and its location to achieve your goals and get the most out of your MBA experience? In other words, how do you intend to turn Columbia Business School into the bridge between your past and your desired future? Now, the essay 1 paints a picture of what you want that future to be. The short essay question and essay 1. Essay 2 should be how Columbia is going to get you there. You could try a fairly straightforward approach. Given my goals, I intend to take advantage of 1, 2, 3. Okay. And again, this is only 250 words, so you don't have a lot of space. You could write about specific clubs that you want to get involved in, events you want to help organize, the academics, the curricular elements that most excite you. An alternative approach could be a day in the life, and I wouldn't do a day in the life for both essays, that shows you taking an active role in these activities. And you need to know the program very well in order to convey what is the most attractive to you. Now, several of you, when I asked you, why you want to go to Columbia, or what about it shows this element of access, you did show some good knowledge of Columbia, but I would even get more specific than you were there. Okay. What it shouldn't be is a generic response that basically spits back a video or the website. Don't write in terms of academics, recruiting, and network. Write in specifics. Again, specifics are much more credible, concrete, and impressive than generalities. Essay 3. Tell us about your favorite book, movie, or song and why it resonates with you. 250 words. Answer this question with something not revealed elsewhere. And it doesn't really matter what book or song or movie you choose. The why is more important. And this can relate, by the way, to something that you've done or experienced. And usually it almost always is going to be a non-professional answer because there's not a lot of room for non-professional stuff elsewhere. So do it here. It could be something about your background, your personal background that wouldn't be revealed, let's say, in activity history or anywhere else in your resume. Something about a challenge overcome, something meaningful in your background that really motivates you and shapes you. Columbia wants to see how you think when you're not at work. What do you enjoy? Again, what's moved you, the non-professional side of you. Think about how you want to respond. What book, movie, or song resonates with you? And what does it reveal about you? The why is far more important than the what. Columbia also has an optional essay. And an optional essay will allow you to discuss any issues that do not fall in the purview of the required essays. Is there something you would like the school to know that you didn't have room for? Obviously, it could be, and they're suggesting that you use it to explain an area of concern in your academic record or your personal history. You were hit by a car during your junior year, and that's why your grades dropped then. I was talking with somebody yesterday who unfortunately had some surgeries that got botched, and obviously her GPA took a hit, or a different kind of challenge, or perhaps more information about an activity or hobby that you just didn't have room for. The Columbia essay questions allow the admissions committee to see where you're headed, why you want CBS. Where you're headed is number one, why you want CBS is number two, and a non-professional side of you, that's number three. The essay 1 and 2 tell them what you seek for the future. Essay 3 shows them a different perspective, what you value, and they help the school create a portrait of you in total. Okay, let's move on. Recommenders. I think we're going to run over a little bit today. There are 2 criteria for your recommenders. Well, that's from me. Columbia itself wants 2 recommendations. If you've been, and it writes, if you've been working full-time for at least 6 months, 1 recommendation should come from your current supervisor. The second recommendation should be from either a former direct supervisor or from another professional associate senior to you who can share their insights on your candidacy. And there's more specific instructions. Again, just look at them there. So that's number 1. My 2 criteria is that number 1, your recommender must know you well and be able to write from personal experience about your work. And both must have been senior to you. Hopefully one is a current supervisor. And Columbia does say you can explain why you are unable to secure recommendation from your current direct supervisor if necessary. But in terms of my criteria, the ones you do ask should be able to write about your qualifications based on personal experience. They know your work. The second criteria of mine is that you must ask them, are they willing to write a strong, positive letter of recommendation for you? If there's any hesitation for any reason, be it because of lack of time or because they don't have as high an opinion of you as you thought, it's okay. Move on, ask somebody else. I would also encourage them to write in specifics. You may want to give them a list of the values that Columbia has. You could direct them to 10 tips for recommenders, which again will encourage them to write in specifics, give examples, etc. Let's move on. You've submitted a great application. You have powerful recommendations that rock, and now you're invited to an interview. Fantastic. Congratulations. At Columbia, the interview is an individual interview. It's supposed to be a personal conversation and not intimidating. It's typically with an alum, almost always. And again, it's very much about getting to know you as a person. They want to see fit. The alum wants to know if this is someone, that, i.e. you, whom they would like in their network. So how do you prepare? We have several resources that you can use to prepare. The first one is a free download, How to Ace Your MBA Interviews. The second one is personalized mock interviews. I'll give you a few prep tips now, and again, you can download the How to Ace Your MBA Interviews. But I would certainly encourage you to consider the mock interview as a dress rehearsal. I guarantee you wouldn't go and perform on stage without a dress rehearsal or several rehearsals. And you also would not go out on the field and play sport without practice. This is not a sport. This is not even, but it is in some ways a performance. So I strongly recommend our mock interviews. And you're so close. You don't want to blow it. If you do decide to prep on your time, or even if you do use our mock interview service, review your Columbia Business School application before you go into the interview. That will allow you to see the stories that you already chose and felt were best demonstrated fit with Columbia. Think about any experiences that occurred that you want to share with the alum since you submitted your application that might further show that fit and your qualifications. I also recommend that you Google the alum ahead of time if you know their name, so that you may find commonalities and create a connection with him or her just through common interests. And then prepare thoughtful questions to ask. Be ready to walk the alum through your resume as well as to respond to behavioral questions. And for behavioral questions, use the CAR approach, very simple approach to structuring your responses. Challenge, action, results. And the results can include, okay, so the challenge is the situation you're facing, the action is what you did, and the results would be the impact on the situation or organization or the solution to the problem, the challenge, as well as what you learned from the situation. And again, do prepare thoughtful questions to ask at the end. Now let's go back to your goal in submitting an application to Columbia. Show that you belong at Columbia Business School. And now I'd like to have that contest I promised at the beginning. Winners will win a free 15-minute consultation with me. It says accepted consultant, but it'll actually be with me. Unless you want to do it with somebody else, that's fine too. The question is, are you ready? And please respond in the chat window. What is Columbia's tagline? Okay. Luis, you got it? Benoit, you got it? And Monsif, you got it. All right. Carly, did you get those names? Okay, great. All right. Good. You got, most of you got that actually. It was a really easy one, wasn't it? All right. Let's go through the 4-part framework, except it's 4-part framework for your application. Present the academic credentials that show you can do the work and excel. Have a clear goal that requires a Columbia MBA. Show that you meet Columbia's criteria and share its values. And last part of the framework, demonstrate that you'll be able to contribute distinctively to class discussions, teamwork, the school's community, and ultimately make the school proud. I'd like to give, well, almost final, not quite final word of advice. The admissions committee readers are sharp, intelligent professionals. Don't try to trick, fake, or fool. The best presentation of you is an authentic reflection of your achievements and dreams, keeping in mind the 4 elements of the framework that will make Columbia want you. Now, before we move forward to the last part of the presentation, I'd like to know at this point what idea, concept, piece of advice you found most valuable so far in the presentation. In the chat window, please. The essay helped. Great. Thank you, Anthony. Be specific. Ooh, good. That's a good one, Louise. The showing versus telling approach. Thank you, Kevin. I didn't even say that phrase, but you got it. Be specific. I think you mean at every point. When possible. Absolutely. Yeah, wonderful. Anybody else? Okay, here it comes. Focus on achievements when the job thing says responsibilities. Good, Benoit. Good. How each essay should focus on, I think you mean something different, but okay. The tricks on how to tackle essay questions and what to avoid in general. Wonderful. Thank you. I'm really, really pleased with your responses. I'm glad you found this valuable. Now, in this webinar, I've given you the requirements of a successful Columbia application. I've also given the reason each and every element is necessary for success. What I can't give you is the how, or at least how to apply this advice to your specific situation, because that's individual. Remember that exercise we did a little while ago? Helping you to produce that authentic reflection of your dreams and achievements requires individual advising, one on one, with an experienced MBA admissions professional like the consultants at Accepted. We here at Accepted want to guide you in showing that you both belong at Columbia Business School or whatever MBA programs you're aiming for and stand out in the applicant pool. We want to advise you in creating applications that accomplish everything we've discussed here today, that have all four parts of the framework. And to do so, you need to engage with Accepted staff of highly experienced admissions professionals. Now, here's what you get when you do engage one-on-one with Accepted. You can access expertise and experience, reduce your stress, save time, optimize your school choice and application, and apply with the confidence that you're presenting yourself at your best. Now, some may say Accepted seems expensive, and we're definitely not a cheap service because of the quality of our staff, but our fees are peanuts compared to the cost of an MBA. Furthermore, there are expensive and less obvious risks associated with not using Accepted, as you can see from the screen. Reapplication can easily cost a couple of $1,000s, especially if you need to retake the GMAT. There's one additional year of pre-MBA earnings, and that can cost you in the 5 figures in dollars. Again, multiples of what you'd spend on us. And there's a potential that you could have gotten into a better program with lifelong higher earnings and network. And I'll let you calculate the cost of that. Every year, we work with applicants who talked to us a year earlier or signed up for our free webinars and then decided after taking the do-it-yourself approach and getting rejected that they would work with us. Now, we're happy to work with them. We're happy to work with you whenever you want to work with us. But they would have been better off working with us initially, and they would have been better off, even those who work with us the first year, they would be better off starting earlier. And so would you. But enough from me. What do Accepted clients say? I want to thank you for all your help. I couldn't have done it without you. This client worked with Esmeralda Cardinal and was accepted to Columbia Business School and Booth. Well, the second one, I'm very happy that I've been accepted to Columbia. Thanks so much for your help along the way. Your insight and careful critiquing of my essays truly did the trick. I think the best compliment I can give is a recommendation. And indeed, I had a friend contact me to ask for advice after I was accepted. I let her know you helped me. Thanks again. And this was from somebody from a very geeky, overrepresented group in the applicant pool who worked with Cindy Tokamitsu. Now, here's what I'd like you to do after the Q&A, because we are getting there. It's now November. It's the perfect time to get started. It's actually, mid-November. Get started on your Columbia Business School application, because you can still submit early in early December or by the merit fellowship deadline of January 4th. Contact us ASAP as soon as possible, and we'd be happy to help you from scratch or review and edit your essays. Our goal is to guide you so that you present all four parts of this critical framework discussed today and show that you both belong at Columbia Business School and are a standout in the applicant pool. Take these steps to work with an accepted MBA admissions consultant and have the kind of experience and success that these clients have had. I also want to remind you of the special offer for webinar registrants that I announced at the beginning of the webinar, up to $1,000 off Accepted MBA admission services. However, you can access $100 off with as little as a $1,000 purchase. Contact us ASAP, talk to a consultant, and purchase before the coupon expires. Now, this offer is nowhere on the site. So again, the coupon code is saved now. There will be a similar offer, I think starting November 16th on the site, or the same offer basically starting the 16th. You folks just get earlier access to it. So take advantage of that access to get in touch with a consultant, maybe get the choice of consultant that you want. And now it's time for the Q&A. So let's see the questions you've posed. If you have questions at this point, either on the material covered in the webinar or on services, please let me know. Just post it in the question window. All right. Okay, Anthony asks a really interesting question. Does it matter if you apply round 2 compared to early decision? It depends where in their regular decision, which I think is what you mean by round 2, you apply. If you apply early in their regular decision cycle, in other words, I would say before December 15th, from what I understand, from Columbia Admissions, and this is true for the last several years, acceptance rates for early regular decision applications and early decision um, applications is almost identical. However, Columbia gets most of its applications before that fellowship deadline, the bulk of them, and the application rate does go down somewhat for the regular decision round as you get closer to that date, since it's on rolling admissions. Okay. And then Anushka asks, how does an hourly package compare with a school package? Any pros or cons with the other? Excellent question. If you're starting from scratch, and you're probably going to be better off with a package. It includes feedback on school choice, advising on content for all the essays, editing of all the essays, editing of your resume, interview prep, waitlist advice if needed, decision counseling in the event of multiple acceptances. So it's more comprehensive. If you have drafts already on your essays and the drafts are in decent shape, you're probably better off with the hourly package because you don't need everything, the hourly plan rather, because you're going to be paying for services that you no longer need. So they really are for two different kinds of people. On the other hand, if you haven't written your drafts yet, but you have a really good idea of where you want to take your drafts and you have confidence in your writing ability, and you want to save money more than time, the hourly plan is a really good option for you and could save you some money. The difference is that you could also end up spending more money than if you had purchased the package. So there's kind of a cost-benefit analysis there. I've found that some people just really want the security of a fixed price. That's why we offer both options. And others, they want to try and save money more and they're going to use us less. So then they go with the hourly plan. Again, we're happy to work with you with either plan. You would work with, there's no, like, some consultants work on packages only and some consultants work on hourly only. It's not like that. But those are kind of the pros and cons. I think the other pro of the package is that you're not counting every call that you've paid for the time your consultant spends. So it's not like you're thinking, well, gee, if I call her, it's going to be another X dollars or another X minutes or anything like that. Okay. So did I answer your question, Anushka? But thank you. It's an excellent question. All right. You also asked, can we write about a club we want to start that will help us build the network for the dream job? That could be depends a little bit, but yeah, sure. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. Okay, Anthony asks if I can talk about reapplicants and can I talk about the reapplicant essay at Columbia? They have only one essay. All right, so reapplicants in general, first of all, have to assess what went wrong in the first application. Now, we do have a service for that. It's called Rejection Review, and I'm going to ask Carly to post a link to that. Were you not competitive? Did you fail to present your qualifications effectively? A combination of both? Were you a victim of the numbers? Those are the most common reasons for rejection. And actually, the most common reason is a combination of 1 and 2. So you have to first of all, do that assessment and then address the causes of rejection. And that is a lot of what the essay is about, right? How have you improved your application as a reapplicant? So you do the assessment. Why did you get rejected? You address and change those things that you feel contributed to your rejection. The advantage of rejection review is you have somebody objective analyzing your application and experienced and knowledgeable. And once you address those things, then you reapply. And in the reapplicant essay, you talk about new responsibilities, new achievements, new reasons that they should accept you, as well as how you address the shortcomings in the previous application. Don't just make it an apology for the last time. Definitely highlight what's new, how you're a new and improved applicant, but weave in how you have improved. And if it just was a matter of, let's say, a higher GMAT, and Carly just posted the link to the rejection review, I actually don't think I would talk about that too much because that they're going to see. You don't have to tell them about it, or maybe just tell them about it in passing, really quick, one sentence. Focus much more on how you have improved in other areas in terms of your professional responsibilities, community service, etc. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Kevin asks, thanks for the words of wisdom, Linda. Does the admissions committee frown upon prospective students copying the resume template that current students use? They would definitely frown if you copy the resume of somebody else, but they would not frown if you use the resume template that they recommend for current students. Not at all. Okay, Jordan asks, do you have advice for non-traditional MBA backgrounds making a career pivot? Well, this is a kind of thing that we work on all the time with clients, Jordan. Obviously, I can't give very specific advice after having spent a good part of the last hour talking about the importance of specifics because I don't have them. But in general, everybody has to both show that they fit in and stand out, right? That's just the reality of MBA admissions. Non-traditional MBA applicants or people from non-traditional MBA backgrounds have a harder time with the fitting in. And people from traditional MBA applicant backgrounds have a harder time with the standing out. So you have a challenge in front of you. You need to show that you fit in, just as we've discussed today. Again, this is the kind of thing we'd love to work with you on, but I need specifics to give you more concrete advice, and I need some time. I don't think this is a time and place for it, but you're just going to have to focus more on that fitting in part. Okay, I hope that was helpful. Probably a little frustrating. Okay, so Luis asked, what is your view of applying with a GRE to Columbia? Does the 80th percentile criteria also apply? I would, first of all, look at I believe that Columbia posts its GRE stats. I'm not 100% positive, but I think they do. If somebody knows for sure, please. Okay, great. I'm glad, Jordan. Let me know. I would look at those stats and compare. If you're outside in terms of the 80th percentile, again, it's something to aim for. I'm guessing, I believe I remember that you posted that you're not from English speaking country. They will cut you some slack on the verbal if you're not from an English speaking country, but obviously they want you to be able to handle the curriculum. So it can't be ridiculously low. If you think you're going to do better on the GRE than the GMAT, then I would recommend you take the GRE. Okay. All right, Rania asks, is round 3 too risky? I'm squeezed with time because of the GMAT, so might miss round 2. All right, well, first of all, Columbia doesn't have rounds, right? Columbia has its early decision deadline, which is passed. Its regular decision deadline, fellowship deadline, I think it's January 4th, I said, but it's certainly in early January, and a regular decision deadline, final deadline in April. If you miss the fellowship deadline, I do think that the acceptance rate goes down, and also there's no more chance for their merit scholarships. So it might be wise to wait an additional year, unless you have no intention of applying for the fellowship. So that's, those are just some thoughts. Again, I would probably recommend waiting till round 1 of next year, but because you would want to have a chance at the fellowship. If it doesn't matter to you, go for it. I see little downside. The only downside I see, if you found reapplication, or rejection rather devastating, then I would just wait till round 1. Okay, Jesus asks, if I have a lower GMAT score, should I consider another university? That depends on how much lower, whether it's balanced or whether one is off, whether there's other evidence of your ability to succeed. CFA, for example, if your quant score is low. It also depends, as an unknown, on the competitiveness of the cycle this year. So, and the background that you're coming from, is there other evidence that you can do the work? So I can't really answer that question well without more information, again, we'd be happy to work with you to determine if you should apply to Columbia, and then if not, where else you should apply. Or perhaps if Columbia is really your dream school, you apply to Columbia and other programs where you're more likely to get accepted in order to have a successful outcome. Anushka asks if you have a passion project that turned into a business idea you want to talk about. Can you mention it on the optional essay? Quite possibly, yes. I'd probably like a little bit more information, but I don't see why not. Okay. Following Anthony's reapplicant question, can the recommendation letters be reused when applying so that the recommenders do not go through the process again? I believe Columbia wants one new recommendation, but I'm not positive. I would check the website for that. I'm not sure off the top of my head. Let's see. You're very welcome, Rania. Okay, Sunny asks, how can we compensate for a lower GPA? Does CFA certification help in offsetting the below average GPA? I had a podcast at accepted.com/137. Maybe Carly, you can post that link again. And I went through how to compensate for a lower GPA. The CFA certification does somewhat help. It also, but there are other things that you can and should do. And it also depends how much lower it is. All right, there, Carly just posted it for you. Thank you, Sunny. Anthony asks if you're a reapplicant and applying for January, is that fine, or should you apply next year or early decision? I think you can. I mean, I think it would have been better had you applied early decision, or as early as possible in the regular decision round. But I'm sure they accept some reapplicants in January also. You're welcome, Sunny. What if someone transferred schools and at their first university they had a low GPA, and at their degree conferring school they had an above average GPA? How would you frame that in the optional essay? It would depend what caused the lower grades and how much of a discrepancy there is and all kinds of things. I would definitely point to your performance at the second school as evidence of what you're really capable of, and provide context for the lower than reduced performance at the first school. I have work experience of 11 years. This is from Neha, which is much higher than the average work experience. How does CBS view such an applicant? Well, you obviously are a applicant with above average experience. Carly, can you post the article that we have for older MBA applicants? There are things that you should do, and this article goes through them, and we are running way over, so I want to, Carly will do that for you, Neha, I'm sure. Okay, you're welcome. And we have an anonymous attendee asking, does a high school national award have any value for the application? Many of you post high school information. It's irrelevant when you're applying to graduate school. Now, if you won some incredibly rare national award, I would put it somewhere, but I certainly would not make a big deal of it, because you are probably, unless you're applying deferred admit, and I don't think we had any. Oh, we did have somebody. If you're applying deferred admit, then maybe yes. But if not, then you could easily be 8, 10, or more years from high school. And the question would be much more about what have you done lately? Okay. I think we're just about done. And now I want to thank you for coming, for your questions, your time, your attention. And I have a final thought and a story and another question from me to you. The thought: there is a paradox at the heart of admissions, and it's actually inherent to acceptance at top business schools. And I alluded to it throughout the presentation, but specifically in answering one attendee's question just now in the Q&A. You have to demonstrate that you fit in and stand out. I think that was Jordan's question about non-traditional applicants. By fitting in, I mean you have to show that you belong at your target school, in this case, Columbia, in terms of your goals, academics, work experience, values, etc. That you're going to be a valuable member of Columbia's community. And that's really part 1 through 3 of acceptance framework. And then you have to stand out. You need to stand out in a highly qualified, intensely competitive, and talented applicant pool. That's part 4 of the framework. You need to show that you are going to contribute distinctively and add a special something to Columbia's community. To get a little poetic, admissions committees look at their classes like a mosaic, and each student is a special stone with a specific you that's going to add to the overall picture. And now for the story. This one is from an email that I got from an accepted consultant. Here's his analysis of one client situations. Let's call the client Raj. I helped Raj into Columbia and Sloan and Booth this season after he failed to get into Wharton, Sloan, and Booth last year. His situation was a very good example of why even excellent candidates need guidance to help them into top business schools. His previous applications did a very poor job of presenting him to admissions committees. He didn't take advantage of his very international background. He didn't emphasize his leadership and career-related stories, and he chose his topics poorly, from events from long ago, like that high school award, and from events of little interest to admissions committees. Pointing him in the right direction and guiding him down that path brought him multiple acceptances this year, even though little had changed in his candidacy from the previous year. So, if you want a reliable guide on this journey who will kindly give you insightful, trustworthy, and necessary feedback to help you get into your favorite schools and pursue your career, your dream career, take advantage of acceptance services and special. The clients you heard from sought acceptance help and applied confidently and successfully. They're now pursuing their dreams. Follow their recommendation. Take the steps that they took and pursue yours too. And now that last question from me to you. You've stayed for the webinar, the pitch, the Q&A, and even my closing thoughts. And these really were the closing ones, final ones. I really appreciate your presence. I appreciate your participation and your questions. You're obviously interested in what I have to say. For those of you who are here and who are not already clients, I'm just wondering, what's causing you to hesitate about engaging with an accepted consultant? Can you help me out with that question? In the chat window, please. Cost and time. Can you elaborate on the time part? The fee is high. The cost. Okay. Great, Val. Val wrote that I want to pass the exam, and then we'll definitely turn to you for help. Wonderful. Okay. All right. I understand what you said, Kevin. Now, thank you for elaborating. Let's deal with the cost issue. You are applying to programs that are going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars, most of you. Very few people are going to get full rides. Doesn't it pay to get into a better school? Even the application, just the application can cost, I think it's usually about $250 per application. And then there's the cost of GMAT prep. There might be the cost of travel in normal years, not this year, for interviews. You're saving probably a good percentage of our fees just by not having to travel to an interview. Maybe it's wise to invest that savings in getting into the best school you can. Now, our minimum fee is $330. I'm going to go back up to this slide. Hold on a second. Right? The minimum investment is $330. Even a comprehensive application package for one school is $45.75. You contrast that to the cost of reapplication, which can be more than our fees, or depending upon how much you buy. An additional year of reduced earnings can be far greater than our fees. And the potential that you could have gotten into a better program with higher lifetime earnings and the investment you make and accepted could be the best investment you'll ever make. I can't promise you that, obviously, which is why I realize some of you are hesitating, but that's the reality. Benoit very nicely wrote, he's trying to save everything he can for New York City rent. But if you don't get accepted, you won't have to worry about the rent. And Kevin wrote that he's worried about the time that involved in working with us. And that's one of the reasons he doesn't want to use our services. But you know what? You might be, whoops, let me turn off my phone. Sorry. You might be spending more time on your applications, just spinning your wheels, than if you would use an accepted consultant. So think about that. Most clients say we save them time. So again, these are just things I think you should think about. Val wrote that he wants to pass the exam and then will definitely turn to us, or she will turn to us for help. That's great. That makes sense. The fee is high. The quality of the service is also very high. Okay. All right. Good, Kevin. And let's see, anybody else? I again want to remind those that the minimum fee, just to have us review your essays, it's $303 per hour. Okay. And you can get some good feedback on those essays, not edited, but feedback in 1 hour. You're going to spend almost that amount just applying. Don't you want to know that you've applied well? I realize it's, money is an issue. I'm not minimizing it. Now, somebody wrote, let's see. Okay. Anybody else want to help me out with my question again, which is what's causing you to hesitate about engaging with an accepted consultant? I really appreciate your sharing your concerns and your perspective. If not, then I just want to wish you all the best with your applications. Take advantage of the special that's on your screen still, and if you can, and if not, just ace them. Good luck with your applications. I hope you get into Columbia and the schools of your dreams. Have a great day. You're very welcome, Louise. You're very welcome, Neha. You too. Stay safe. Stay safe, everybody.